Without the advent of two iconic World War II combat watches, the British 30 dozen and the American A11, today we might not have some of our favourite field watches, for example the Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical or the Bulova Hack. Field watches, especially those inspired by World War II, are so rich in history because so many of us had relatives that were involved in this most defining conflict of the 20th century. So what do you do if you want a World War II inspired watch but you've got less than $1,000 to spend? Well, we're going to explore that question now because we have two excellent copies of the Dirty Dozen and the A11 from the Praesidus Watch Company. Which is best? First, let's look at the DD45. The DD45 is Praesidus's take on the legendary Dirty Dozen. It is by far their most expensive watch at over $800, but in fairness, it is their most ambitious project to date. To be a worthy homage to the original watch, it correctly follows the period design specs of a 38mm steel case and an uncluttered numeral dial fairly authentic to the style of the 1940s War Office spec, with luminous numerals, segmented minute track, and of course the iconic second subdial at 6 o'clock. It looks the part, and Praesidus have taken the bold step of releasing 3 aged variants, depending on what World War II look you're seeking. This could have been a controversial design approach because one could argue that 3 finishes highlight the watch's newness, almost like artificially aged film props. But we have to admit that all 3 variants actually really work well. There is a DD45 Factory Fresh, a Tropico, and a Patina, and they're all the same price. The Patina model looks like an original Dirty Dozen in fabulous condition and was probably never issued. The weathered dial is achieved through using a combination of chemical aging and intensive UV light exposure. Whatever your choices, you'll get the same very capable specs. A 38mm stainless steel case that's just 11.8mm thick, including the double dome sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, a water resistance of 100 meters with a screw down crown, and an excellent Landeron L24 movement with a sub second-hand complication. The DD45 is available with a choice of straps including distressed leather, steel and fabric, all of which look suitably appropriate. If you did, however, want to add a little touch of Britishness to your Dirty Dozen watch, we have a wonderful selection of British military nylon straps over at WatchGecko.com, any of which will add true authenticity to your treasured watch. Now, if your interest in World War II watches comes from the other side of the pond, then Praesidus have got you covered as well. The US solution to a requirement for a wartime watch came in the form of the iconic A11, which I actually prefer to the Dirty Dozen. The watches were not vastly different in spec other than having a full-size second hand as opposed to the British small subdial. Consequently, I find them easier to read, perhaps because they're more akin to a modern field watch. The Praesidus A11 has been out for quite a few years, and the first 1,000 were sold out almost as soon as they were made. I know, because I had to move quickly to secure my 42mm black dial model. The watch has 2 dial colours and either 38mm or 42mm cases. We have an ivory dial 38mm on test just now, which is certainly closer to the original World War II issue size. I just simply preferred the extra legibility of the 42mm. Following the original A11, the Praesidus dial is uncluttered and extremely legible. As with the original Dirty Dozen series, several US watch companies produced watches for World War II. One was Hamilton, and the hands of the Praesidus copy their style. Bold numerals, or pips depending on your dial colour, are luminous and have a vintage brown patina appearance in daylight. A 10-minute segmented outer ring matches the original 1940 spec, and the dial is protected by a sapphire crystal lens with anti-reflective finish. The Praesidus A11 is automatic, powered by a Seiko NH35 movement, while the World War II models were hand-wound. The NH35 is, of course, well known, pretty much bulletproof. The watch we have is a special homage to a famous American D-Day veteran called Tom Rice. The story is that on D-Day, Tom parachuted out of his C-47 plane, and in the process of doing so, his A11 watch was ripped off his wrist. 80 years later, Tom and Praesidus were put in touch with one another, and the Tom Rice Special Edition was issued to mark his service with the 101st Airborne Division and effectively return his missing watch. Hence the reason the back of the watch of this A11 special edition is engraved with the lines, "The Lost Watch of D-Day." The DD45 is available from $875 depending on spec, and the Tom Rice A11 is just $375 irrespective of spec. To be honest, I'd really struggle to pick between the two watches. Both generate that authentic look and also, more importantly, that emotional response you get when you strap on a World War II homage watch. So it really depends on whether or not you feel a degree of loyalty to the British or the American troops, or maybe more importantly, you like a small subdial at the 6 o'clock mark, or you like the full-sized hand of the A11. Praesidus watches are really well made, and they come at a pretty favourable price when you consider the specs, and also when you take into then consideration what you'd pay for an original watch. If you're looking for a World War II watch, it's really worth checking out Praesidus's collection. For sure, you'll end up with a cracking field watch that's steeped in history.